So the August 17th changes are here. So let's talk about what it is, what's happening, what I think the direction is going to be going in. Keep in mind that my perspective is on California because I'm licensed in California. Maybe your state is different. I don't know, but I can only talk about California. Okay. So now, two big changes. The first change is that in order to enter a home, you have to sign some paperwork, okay? You're not getting into an open house without signing something. You're not going to a Zillow lead without signing something. Now, that paper that you're signing might say that it's open agency and, you're not really represented, or some forms were even no representation, okay? But you need to sign something to get into a home. And I'm finding that a lot of agents don't really want to mess with you if you're going to sign a non-agency or signing something in general that says you're not going to pay them, okay? So now people really do need to pick an agent. If they don't, and they're trying to go with a non-agency purchase, that's a whole thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But no matter what you do, you need to sign something when going into a home. I need buyers to beware because I think that a lot of people are going to sign stuff without reading it. You need to know if you are signing an open house disclosure, if you're signing a non-agency agreement, or if you're signing an agency agreement. Non-agency or open agency means you can continue looking at homes and you may or may not owe commission depending on what's in there. If it's an agency agreement, no matter what home you buy for the duration and the geographic situation on that contract, you will owe that agent money. So for most buyers, what I really recommend, because most buyers aren't that savvy, find an agent, get an agency agreement, and that way you don't have to sign with every single agent and then possibly owe 18 commissions because you kept pushing the Zillow button and they all had you sign crappy paperwork, okay? So be super careful of what you're signing when you're going into homes, but you have to sign something to get into a home. Now, that aside, so the second half is how we handle buyer agency commission. It used to be on the MLS where more or less what would happen is the listing agent would say, hey, I want 5% to list your home. I want half of that to go to the buyer's agent, sometimes less than half of that, but let's pretend. And so then as a buyer, you'd show up and say, hey, look, my agent is getting whatever dollar amount. It wasn't really negotiable. It was kind of weird the way that was handled, okay? Now that line is completely off the form. There is no amount for a buyer agency amount at all, okay? So now as a buyer's agent, when you go to buy the home, you're going to have a buyer's agency agreement with your buyer saying, hey, Mr. Buyer, if you want to buy the home, I charge whatever percent, 2%, 3%, somewhere in the middle. I don't care, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know. But they're going to say, hey, I charge this amount. And then on your offer, you're going to put on the offer, I want to buy the house for $850,000 and I want you to pay my agent 2.5%, okay? Or whatever the percent is. And this is going to fit in the same way that home warranties and closing costs and repairs and all that other stuff fits in, okay? So sellers can't really say anymore, I'm not paying a buyer agency fee. I mean, I guess they kind of can after they get an offer, but at the end of the day, for sellers, it's going to be all about net, right? It's not going to be about how much specifically the seller's or buyer's agent is getting. It's going to be about their net amount, okay? Now let's talk about unrepresented buyers real quick. There is a line on the contract that says we will charge X amount for an unrepresented buyer. It could be zero. It could be as much as we want it to be. I think that most agents I'm seeing in the area are charging somewhere around 2% for an unrepresented buyer. So if you really think you're going to save money by not hiring an agent, the listing agent's just going to get a bonus. And then you have to pay a lawyer and do all the work yourself, okay? So in general, I think that all of these super tough guys that are going to say, I bought my house on my own, no agent. I think that they're going to, at the end of the day, still be spending money on an agent. They're just not going to be aware of it. And no, you can't put down on your offer that you're not paying the listing agent because your agreement has nothing to do with the listing agent. Your agreement has to do with the buyer's agent, right? So since you have no buyer's agent, you have no argument there in that mess about how you're paying the listing agent because it's not your concern. The seller's paying it, right? So I think that for a lot of people that are trying to save money, all you're going to end up doing is you're going to pay a lawyer extra because you're already paying the realtor in a lot of ways. Not necessarily, but from most of the time from what I'm seeing. And so overall, I think these changes are going to be huge and they're going to be great. What we're seeing as a short version is that buyer's agents are going to make more money, which is awesome because, to be frank, being a buyer's agent, I think is probably the most expensive side of selling homes. I know that you'd think that it'd be listings, you got to do photos and 3D and marketing and blah, 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 blah. But Zillow and Realtor.com cost a fortune. Out here, it's like $500 or $800 per conversation. It's wild. So, now buyer's agents are going to be able to charge more, which I think either will take some money away from listing agents, or maybe it won't. Maybe listing agents' commissions will stay the same. We've kind of resolved all the issues we had with all these kind of for sale by owner type folks, where they thought they were going to save money by doing weird underhanded things with the listing agents and in these other ways. That's going to be more or less done with now for the most part. So, overall with this, I think it's all really good changes. I think that overall, I think consumers are going to hate it, but I think that it's going to be really good for realtors, and I think it's going to be, in general, a really good way to reduce a lot of the BS and bad stuff that we see going on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think about all these changes, but I think they're fantastic. So let me know what you think down below.